Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Angel Storm. Thank you so much for joining. So I recently released a video about the difference between the silent treatment and going no contact. And in the comments of this video, I got a comment that was so well said. The author of the comment actually deleted it. I wish she would have left it up. But one of the phrases that she said in there was wrestling with the concept of the narcissist being both God and victim at the same time. And I couldn't think of a better way to kind of sum up every kind of thing that's going on with a narcissist when you're dealing with one. They're both God of the situation and the victim of the situation. And somehow you're supposed to just accept that that's what it is. And that is the completion of the scenario. Also recently on this channel, I did a live on the hypocrisy of allowing some versions of this to be overlooked in society, and some versions of this God and victim complex to be held accountable and really held to the fire because of it. There needs to be one standard, and I understand that this video was very controversial, and I'm going to get to that video in just a second. But I want to premise this whole video by saying, first of all, there has to be one standard. If you have a standard for yourself and a different standard for somebody else, you're the problem. It isn't the other person who has no idea what the standard is going to be because you are inconsistent. This is what I teach strongly about, specifically with my clients that I work one-on-one with, but also on this channel, I talk about it all the time. Boundaries are first for your own self. If you cannot hold yourself accountable to the very thing that you are implementing in your life, how do you expect somebody else to abide by those standards, especially when you know that that other person is unhealthy? This is a concept that I've talked about before as well. If you know that somebody is unhealthy, why are you expecting them to act in a healthy way? You've by your own standards said that person is unhealthy, and yet you expect them to behave in a healthy manner. A lot of people who are trying to do this have themselves broken their own boundaries, and then they want to place the blame on somebody who doesn't follow the boundaries. This two types of people typically will be doing this. There's many more, just people who aren't educated, people who are unaware of what boundaries are supposed to do. Fine. But two people primarily on this channel, because this channel is all about narcissistic abuse recovery, do this. You're either a narcissist and you're doing that. You're saying something to somebody, but then you don't follow that standard. And so then you get upset when the other person doesn't follow that standard. And now you want to use the fact that they didn't follow your standard as like a club to beat them over the head with, or you're codependent. You have been around a narcissist, or you've been raised by a narcissist, or whatever the case may be. You've been in the atmosphere of narcissism for so long that you have seen a double standard, and you want to implement the double standard and maintain the sense of victimhood by continuing to have the narcissist to blame. And I know that that is a strong statement and people aren't going to like that, but this is the truth of the matter. And if I don't actually reveal like what's going on in your method of thinking, you'll never have the opportunity to change it. You can't change something that you're unaware needs to be changed. This does require a very deep level of being honest with yourself, of really self-examining yourself to the point of saying, yeah, that is a problem and I need to change it. And here's how I plan to change it. It's not just enough to say like, yeah, that thing needs to get changed. You need to have a plan in place for how you're going to do different behavior and think differently ultimately in that situation. Everything is a result of thoughts. So if you have an unhealthy way of thinking, that unhealthy way of thinking is never going to produce a healthy outcome in actions on the external world, healthy conversations. No, it's always going to, if the source is unhealthy, whatever comes from it, whatever flows from that is always going to be unhealthy. If you have an unhealthy way of thinking, it's unreasonable to assume that that unhealthy way of thinking is going to somehow lead to a healthy life. in any realm, in any area. This doesn't just have to do with the way you think about narcissists and the way that you think about narcissistic abuse, or the way that you think about yourself and your situation with the narcissist. This has to do with every kind of thing. Your finances, your business, your friendships, your goals in general, like anything. If you have an unhealthy way of thinking about that issue, you're always going to produce unhealthy results. So I want to get into this this concept of why so many people tend to overlook narcissistic abuse, especially in the beginning of the relationship. And again, this doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It can be just the first time that you start engaging with a narcissist. You'll tend to overlook the red flags because of this God and victim complex. The narcissist will present themselves as ruler of all. You know, they're in control of every kind of thing in their life, including the people in their life. They can control those people. They can control what those people do, say, where they go, how long they go there for, all of this kind of stuff. And yet they, in the same breath, they are also the victim of all of those situations that they just admitted that they had been creating. So they're both the victim of this world that they've created and rule. The video that I'm talking about, where I talked about how the fact that AOC lied about her whereabouts during the January 6th insurrection is not only concerning about that instance itself is not just the only concerning thing. Like, yes, that's very serious and it is concerning. What is more concerning is that when she was held accountable for what she had been saying, she had said that she felt, fear for her life, that there were protesters outside of her office. None of this was true. Instead of just saying, you know what, I'm sorry, I was so in my emotions, I was so overwhelmed by the possibility of what could happen. My mind was creating these scenarios that none of them were true. Instead, what she did was she said, okay, you know what? I'm not even going to address the fact that I lied about that I made that stuff up, that none of that was actually based in reality. I'm now going to move the conversation over here and tell you all that I have been a victim of sexual assault, and that the January 6th incident at the Capitol reminds me of feeling that way when I was assaulted. So she's never talked about this sexual assault before this. And again, this isn't a video about, is she lying? Is she telling the truth about that? The issue is, okay, but you still have the issue of saying you were doing one thing when you were actually not doing that thing. And now we have this rhetoric out there that is completely false, a completely false story. And so when this story was breaking, the hashtag AOC lied was trending. And what did her followers on her social media platform do? They took over that hashtag and started posting cute photos of their pets. And again, this is exactly the scenario that I'm talking about. She's both God and rules over all of the events. The January 6th incident was no longer about the state of the country, the divided state that we are living in, and which, by the way, she is a representative of, and it is her job to represent the best interests of the people in Congress. Instead of having that event be an example of the state of the country, it was made into her. So it was made to focus all about her feelings during that event, about how scared she was. There was numerous interviews that she did talking specifically about the January 6th events, which, come to find out, none of that was actually true. She wasn't where she said she was. None of the events she was describing were actually happening. She was in a completely different building. And so she's both like making this scenario all about her, and yet she's also the victim. And now when it comes out, hey, that scenario you just told us, that's not actually true. That's a false scenario. Okay, well, you can't say any kind of thing to me because I'm also the victim of sexual assault. You cannot be both. And this is a red flag of narcissism. This is a red flag of narcissism and people who have been victims of narcissistic abuse. And in any case, in either situation applied to AOC, doesn't matter, because she is a representative of Congress. She is there to do a job, and she needs to function in that position regardless of her personal experiences or personal emotions that are happening. If there is trauma that she herself says has been compounded upon one another, then that type of person needs to say, am I in a right space to be making healthy decisions on behalf of others? Because that is exactly what she's doing as a lawmaker. And the fact that we reject this notion that this is what's actually happening here because she's a woman, she's 31 years old, she's a minority, whatever your reasoning for it is, maybe you just like her presentation, you like the way that she carries herself, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to call this out when you see this happening, regardless of the scenario that it's in. And I'm not going to stop talking about this because the perpetuation of narcissists come in this one form is what's going to allow you to continue to be a victim of narcissistic abuse and other types of abuse. It's going to perpetuate the normality of narcissism in our society, which I'm extremely against. And it's going to continue to allow more lawmakers in this instance, and not to mention CEOs, other positions of power, doctors, surgeons, lawyers, people in the court system to behave this way because there is no recourse for this type of behavior. If you call them out on it, they're going to make up another scenario where they're now a victim. They're both the ruler, and you need to pay attention to them and do exactly as they say. They are God over every kind of situation that they want to talk about. And don't question whether or not that's actually true or that actually happened or if this is actually based in reality. Don't question any of that, because if you do, they're also the victim. You need to be able to recognize this, and this is the whole point of the video. The moment you see somebody being both the god of the situation and the victim in that exact scenario where they have often themselves admitted that they created or rule over this situation. They are a voice that will not be silenced in this scenario, and yet they're also still the victim in that scenario. This is so unhealthy. This is so unhealthy. You have to be able to recognize this, even when it comes in the body of somebody that you don't want to go against. You need to pay attention to not words, but actions. You need to actually look at what this person is doing, because muddying the waters, being very confused, making other people confused about what the actual reality is. And the moment you start to try to pry and find out if these are actual facts, is the moment that you're going to be blamed, because you're victim shaming, you're taking advantage of somebody who is already in a distressed state. You aren't taking all sexual assault victims seriously. There were so many labels put onto people who are actually just trying to find out, hey, is this person actually even telling the truth about this or not? And by the way, she has a history of not telling the truth about events that have occurred. And so the fact that somebody would be questioning this is very normal, but yet they're now the victim, because that fake scenario that they've created, that they want you to look at, the facade they want you to see, as soon as somebody starts peeling away the layers and actually sees what's underneath, they get very offended, and now they're the victim. You need to pay attention to this type of behavior. This is the most dangerous type of behavior, by the way. I'm linking in the description of this video below a video that I did months ago talking about the most dangerous type of narcissist, And it's really important that you are aware of this, because they do this exact thing. They make themselves both God and victim in the same exact scenario that they admittedly created. Please pay attention. Please be aware that this is going on, and please vote according to your actual beliefs. Do you want to perpetuate this type of thing? Because do you understand that you're voting for somebody who is going to not only continue to demonstrate this themselves, they're going to continue in this behavior, but they're creating a group of flying monkeys around them, not just within the general population, but certainly within members of Congress who are coming around to insulate them, to protect them from their own actions, from their own behaviors. They're never going to be held accountable, and anybody who tries to speak up or even investigate what is happening here is going to be demonized. They're going to be the outcasts. They're going to use all of the tools, such as social media and even the mainstream media, to attack and silence that person. This is exactly what narcissists do to their victims. Think about how many of you watching this video right now have had this happen. You wanted to speak up, you wanted to share about what has been happening to you, and the moment you do, somebody from the flying monkey party of the narcissist has come and shut you down, has come and made incredibly rude or demeaning comments or even threats on your social media posts. There's been so many people who admittedly say, this is exactly what happened to me, and yet when they see it on a larger scale, because it's happening in government or because it's happening and the person doing it, they don't want to speak out against because they're going to either be a sexist, a racist, an ageist, or whatever, you're going to have another label put on you for speaking out, and you just don't want to deal with that. You guys, part of the recovery process is understanding truth. Part of the recovery process is understanding truth. And in fact, I just did a video where I spoke about the importance of keeping track of the narcissistic behaviors and cycles and journaling it, because you need to be rooted in truth, because if you're not, that's all types of open doors that the narcissist story and the narcissist version of events can come in and just become the truth in your life. And so many people end up believing this. So many people end up believing it was their fault, that they could have said something or done something different, that there was a different outcome that was available to them, when that is just not true. The narcissist was never going to change. The narcissist was never going to make their life about you. That's not true. And the longer you continue to think bad ways of thinking, toxic ways of thinking that it's your fault, the longer you're just in this bondage, this prison that you are creating for your own self to live in. So the importance of breaking free and recognizing it in your own life is step one. Being able to help other people is step two. And being able to identify this when you're not involved in the situation at all, but you can see exactly the players and how the abuse cycle is happening, that's another step of the healing process. And if you think that this doesn't happen in big corporations, in government, whatever it may be, you're wrong. And you need to have that level of healing come to you so that you can have eyes that will see through this stuff. This is extremely important. Again, these people are making laws that will impact our lives, that will impact your children's lives and your grandchildren's lives. You need to think about the second, third, fourth order effects of voting in somebody like this, of voting in people who will insulate the narcissist from these types of behaviors and from the consequences of their behaviors. Think about this. This is stuff that you directly control. And again, a victim mentality is going to say, well, I just don't have any influence over that. Yes, you do. I might not be able to influence how all the people vote ever, but I can use what I have. I have a YouTube channel. I can help people to be able to see that there is a way of thinking that is not what to think, but how to think, that will produce for them a healthy life all of the time, as long as they use the healthy method of thinking. Toxic thoughts can never produce something healthy. Toxic ways of thinking will never produce something healthy. And the double standards that you create for yourself, especially in scenarios like these, like, no, that wouldn't be okay if somebody did it to me, but because this person is in government, or because this person is female, or because she's young, whatever it is that you want to make an excuse for, is causing cognitive dissonance in your brain. Do you understand? You're doing brain damage to your own self. You're perpetuating abuse within yourself, and you're the one who's allowing it to continue. So please pay attention to the people who are both God of their world, and they rule it all, and yet they are also the victim of that same world. It's happening all around us, and I really hope that everybody watching this video is becoming more and more aware. You will remove your emotions, you will remove your convictions, your loyalties to a certain party, to a certain idea, or whatever it is, and just be able to see the situation as it is and just judge it from the outside looking in. You don't need to be wrapped up in it and be in there. Your emotions can lie to you. In fact, they often do, especially if you're a victim of abuse and you haven't gotten completely healed. Your emotions are going to lie to you. So please do some work. Think about this video. So please take what I'm saying in this video seriously. Please invest some time in looking for real at this situation as one example, but think about some other scenarios. When you hear things in the news, please use your brain. Please use your own critical thinking ability, and please look at it. Is there another thing that could be happening here? What is the purpose of this person or of this station or of this channel to be telling me this version of events? Is there another one that I'm not hearing? Is there really only one side to this story? These are just some of the questions that you can start to ask yourself in the process of healing from narcissistic abuse, and so that you can use your own experience as a way to apply it to the greater whole. I have another video that I did, and it actually talks about how to get society to care about narcissistic abuse. And do you know what I say in that video? Long story short is to get healed, because if you are a victim constantly complaining about the system or a person or all of the things that didn't work for you, but you have no solution to any of those things, you haven't actually investigated where was the breakdown, why didn't it work for me, what could have been done differently. If you don't have an actual solution to the problem that you're complaining about, no one's going to listen to you. No one's going to listen. And this is exactly the situation that we are faced with when it comes to the members of our Congress right now. There is so much disconnect, so many falsities that nobody wants to listen to anybody else. And if you think that that's one-sided, if you think that there's only one side doing it or one type of person doing it, you're really mistaken. Please take a look at what is actually happening, and don't be afraid to speak out for the truth and call this out when it's happening. Abusers get emboldened every time that they're not held accountable. That every time they abuse somebody and nobody says any kind of thing or holds them accountable for those actions, they get emboldened to do it again and to more people on a greater scale. This happens from every scenario of one-on-one abuse to larger systemic issues of abuse. So please pay attention to this. Please start thinking about narcissistic abuse not just happening one-on-one, but happening systemically. You guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, I'm Dr. Angel Storm, and if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel below and turn on the little bell so that you're notified whenever I upload a new video to this channel.